Right, so what are we going to talk about today? Well, I have had a couple of questions from some of you guys about how life actually is for an airline pilot. What's good with it, what's not so good with it, how does it affect your personal life, and things like that. First of all, it's a fairly hard question to answer directly because everyone's life is different and everyone have different needs and everyone have different levels of security in their lives needed, and I can only speak for myself and my personal knowledge about how life tends to be. What we can begin with saying is that life as an airline pilot is mostly very, very positive. The job in itself is pretty much what you think it is. It's a lot of flying, obviously, but it's also a lot of time off and a lot of possibility to travel. So every month I get a roster which looks like this. And as you can see on my roster, there are quite a few days that says either off or standby on them. Now, off days speak for themselves. It means that I'm off, that the airline cannot call me or cannot use me unless they ask me and I am willing to do so. Standby is a little bit different. They are days that I am at the disposal of the company. In case some of my colleagues would fall ill, for example, become sick, then they have to have a backup plan, and that backup plan is me. So I'm either working on an early or a late standby. An early standby generally starts around 4:30 in the morning and finishes about the same time in the evening. And a late standby starts around 9:30 in the morning and then finishes about 10:30 in the evening. During that time I have to be within an hour from the airport, which means basically if you're living around your base you can do pretty much whatever you like. You just have your uniform ready, and when they call you go. It doesn't mean that you have to be there within an hour, it just means that you need to be able to be there within an hour. So if I'm working like I'm doing this week, for example, I was flying a very long day, my first day, which was in the region of 10.5 hours due time. Then today I have standby, which means I'm home and tinkering around in my garden and doing whatever I feel like doing, like this for example. Tomorrow I'm flying to Eindhoven and back, which is gonna take me about 6 hours of duty time, and it's in the morning, so I'll be getting up around 4:30, 4:40 in the morning local time, and then I'll be in the airport around 6 to depart around 7. I have to be in the airport 45 minutes before the scheduled departure time, and we should be in the aircraft around half an hour before. So generally I tend to be in a little bit earlier to get myself a little bit extra time to do the pre-flights, which is a thing that I'm going to discuss in a different podcast, by the way. So tomorrow I'll be there, as I said, about an hour before the flight leaves, and I'll be talking to my first officer, setting up the flight, making sure that we have enough fuel and that we have the aircraft de-iced if that's needed and things like that. I'll go out into the aircraft, we'll set up the aircraft for departure, it takes about 30 minutes to do. Get all the passengers and fuel on board, making sure that all the manuals and paperwork is up to date and correct for the flight. And then we'll take off. I'll fly to Eindhoven, takes about 2 hours, a little bit less. We'll land there, taxi in, turn around, takes 25 minutes, and then we will depart again. Flying back takes another 1 hour and 45, 1 hour and 50. And then I'll be taxiing in my aircraft, parking it at the gate, go into the crew room, file the paperwork, and then I am done. That is a grand total of about 6 hours, which means that I'll be ready to go home at around midday, which is of course great. That's how my days look. So I'm either doing 2 sectors or 4 sectors a day. Of course 4 sectors takes a bit longer, so if I'm doing a 4 sector early I might be done between 3 and 5 in the afternoon. And if I'm doing late, I'll be starting on a 4-sector day around 11 in the morning, finishing around midnight. And if I'm doing a 2-sector day, slightly later, so starting around 4 o'clock in the afternoon and finishing around midnight normally. In my airline, the life as a family man is surprisingly easy. Now, I should say that within brackets, because it is of course all dependent on you being based in the base that you want to be based. If you are not, then it's a different thing. Then you'll have to commute back to your family, and that makes life a little bit harder. Which is why I am telling all the ones joining my airline and under my tutelage to try to, if they can, create their life around the base that they get assigned. Because if you're based in, or if you have your life and your family in the base that you're based, this is probably the best job, one of the best jobs in the world. All of this time I was talking about the standby time, the off time, you'll be able to spend with your family or with your friends and do things you love and like. And the rest of the time you will be flying, which is presumably something you also love and like. So in this particular company, it is fairly easy, I would say, once you have your family around you, to have a good family life. I have had some questions about why so many pilots are divorcees and why they seem to be miserable in their lives. And of course, like I said, I can only speak for myself, but when it comes to long-haul flying is one of those things that we all dreamt about when we started our pilot careers. Of course, when I thought about becoming a pilot, what I was thinking about was putting myself into a huge jet, flying over the Atlantic, sipping non-alcoholic drinks around a pool somewhere in the Caribbean for 2 days, and then turning around, taking my huge aircraft and flying home again. And that's not, well, at the base it is actually true in some cases. This is pretty much what the life looks like. But the difference is that what's really important in life, which is to be close to your loved ones and to spend time with your family, suffers from this kind of lifestyle. I'm going to try to explain it in a way that I've gotten it explained to me from some of my friends based down in the Middle East and in China, for example. Picture yourself with a roster of being off for 3 days, then going out flying for 4 or 5 days, where you fly from whatever your base is. Let's say it's Madrid. You start flying over the Atlantic over to United States, and then you might continue down to South America somewhere, continue from there on to Africa, into Asia, and then back on to Madrid. So that will take you approximately 4 or 5 days to do. Now, after those 4 or 5 days, you have another off period of, let's say, 3 days or 4 days. The amount of sleep you get during a working period like that varies, of course, but if you're like me, you might be a bit jet lagged. The jet lag in itself will make you very tired. So when you get back from that long flight duty, you will have to sleep, you'll have to rest. Now, of course, picture alongside this that your wife has been home, taking care of the kids, taking care of the household, all the bills, everything that needs to be done during those 4 or 5 days that you've been gone. Of course, once you get back to the house, she would want some relief. Obviously, everyone would. She would want you to fix whatever is broken in the garden. She would want you to take care of the kids, go out and play. Meanwhile, you are really tired and you just want to sleep. This, of course, is a source of possible friction within a relationship. And this is just an example of how things will look, because after those 3 or 4 days that you've off, then maybe you've had a disagreement with your wife, and then all of a sudden you have to go again, and you're going to be gone for another 3 or 4 days without being able to talk about the problem, and with the problem just growing and growing and snowballing as you go. So you could see that this is a potential for breakups within any kind of marriage, and I would say that this probably has some bearing on why there's so many divorcees within the airline business. But that also goes to say that the business is changing a little bit. The airlines are realizing both the benefit of keeping pilots where they want to be, which is at home, and also the cost savings that's associated with that. Because obviously, if you can keep the pilots at home every night, it means that you don't have to spend money on hotels and taxis and things like that. So there's a double benefit, which means that more and more airlines are going the low-cost carrier way, which is to try to get everyone back to their home base as often as possible and try to minimize the amount of time out and away from base. So I would say that if you find a job, if you're a family man, if you find a job within the short to medium haul, it's a high likelihood that you will be able to keep a fairly normal family life. Having said that, of course, most airlines have what's called rolling rosters, which means that you might be working 5, then off 4, then working 5, then off 4, which is the example of my company. And that means, of course, that you'll be working over some weekends, and it's more than likely that you'll be working over holidays as well. And with the nature of our business, annual leave is generally fairly hard to get during the peak seasons, during the summer, for example, or over Easter or over Christmas. That's when everyone else wants to travel, so naturally that's when we have to work. And it's, of course, this can also cause a bit of friction within relationships. But on the plus side, of course, is that we have so much time off during the rest of the year that should make up for it. So that's about rosters. And how about quality of life and quality on the job? Well, I can only say that I find my job to be absolutely fantastic. I get to fly with a lot of motivated young first officers in my role as a trainer, which helps me keep the spark. It's great to see the enthusiasm that they are showing, and also that I'm expecting you guys to show me once we fly together. We fly to a lot of different destinations all over Europe. The flights are not too long, so you don't really have the time to get bored. And it's always changing. Every day is different. Every day there's different weather. Might not always be different destinations, but even a flight to the same destination is probably different from the day before because of passengers, weather, NOTAMs, everything like that. So there's not how should I explain this? It's not too much luxury involved in flying as it used to be. It's not too much sitting around drinking coffee with flight attendants. It's more about actually working. But then again, you are working with what you like to do. Every time I take off with my Boeing, it gives me the same sensation of joy. And landings are just as fun now as it was 13 years ago when I started with it. So life as an airline pilot, as I said, even though it has its downsides when it comes to family life, it definitely weighs up with all the plus sides of having a great job, having very much time off compared to a normal vacation, a normal job. And that's about it, really. I can go into details about different things. I would like you to ask questions about that, because it's hard to sit here and talk for myself without having any kind of feedback on it. So please ask me whatever you want to do, whatever you want to know, and I'll try to answer it to the best of my capabilities.